Hello, thanks very much for clicking on the video link. My name is Natalie Armstrong Moton. Thanks for watching one in a series of Idle Chat videos for the American Bar Association's Section for Dispute Resolution. Today, I get to talk to a colleague in New York. This is Aurora Paradisis. Hello, Aurora.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I'm so glad you could join me for an Idle Chat.
Likewise.
So, Aurora, I've got this magical little deck of cards. It's about 120 questions. We'll kind of randomize it by shuffling the deck a little bit. See what cards come up. And you understand that this is not cutting edge journalism, but on the other end of it, I promise that no mediators will be harmed in the filming of this video. So, what do you know now that you wish you had known 20 years ago?
There is so much. I think that if I could speak to my younger self, I would say, don't take yourself too seriously. And learn to laugh a little bit about your faux pas, because not only do you grow from them, but on reflection, they often are quite funny if you really think through all of the nuances. So I would say, don't take yourself too seriously and learn to laugh.
That's really good advice. What would be one or a couple of your favorite things to cook or bake?
Oh, wow. Well, I love flan. You know, my family's originally from Puerto Rico, and so I make a delicious flan in the dessert arena. And then, of course, I would have to revert to something that my mother taught me how to make, although it's not typically considered a Latinx dish, a lasagna, but the secret ingredient is in her recipe are raisins, and people wonder, well, why raisins? And so I actually often wondered. She didn't have an answer for me, but historically in the Caribbean islands, it was not atypical to include fruit in the preparation of food, because it actually showed status and that you were not so impoverished. And so I believe that's why that recipe was passed down from my grandmother and perhaps her grandmother all the way to my mother to me, to incorporate raisins. And people are always surprised, why are raisins in lasagna? Well, it's the family recipe. And I believe historically, the rationale is what I just sort of offered.
Isn't that interesting? I would never have thought that to be the case, but I can understand it. I can see why that would be. Yeah, I can see that. Can you think of anything that is better when it's broken than as a whole?
That's interesting. You know, I don't mean to get philosophical, but sometimes when an individual is fractured, let's say internally, versus a tangential thing, an object, that's where a lot of soul searching happens and a lot of reflection occurs, so that on their journey to becoming whole, they're actually become greater than their parts when all of those pieces were sort of broken. And so I would say, absent the discovery of that process, you actually are better, if you will, when you're broken, because then you couldn't get to your better self. And so, you know, that was my immediate thought. I don't know if you were looking for an object.
I wasn't looking for anything in particular. And I think that perspective has value. I think it was Hemingway who said that we're stronger at the broken places.
And
right?
he's my favorite author, interestingly enough. And I don't think you knew that. So
I did not know that. Aurora, What is the hardest that you've ever worked?
Oh, that's easy, I think. Law school. It was my fourth degree, and I thought, oh, I've done this before. It certainly is going to be a piece of cake. Well, it was everything but. And I don't think that it had to do with, the timing. It was simply a totally different educational process than I had ever experienced. Understanding that I've received a bachelor's, I received a master's and a doctorate degree, and law school was my last. And so, putting that into context, for me to say that it was most difficult, I think that the Socratic method is something that, maybe added to that, but it was also a discipline that really needed to be incorporated. And I happen to be a disciplined person, but it really needed to be stringent in order to be successful. And so that was rough.
but worth it?
But definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. And, it's definitely doable for all of those thinking about it.
All right. Well, that's, the final word of encouragement is always appreciated. Aurora, what game have you spent the most hours playing, do you think?
Interestingly enough, Hangman.
That's old school. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mean to date myself, but I love words, and I love just the idea of that competition. And so I even taught it to my children when they were very young. So Hangman, definitely.
Hangman. That wasn't even on my top 10 list. Hangman. That is a good game. I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. Aurora, what is the oldest thing that you own?
Boy, I would probably have to say some of my mother's old dishes. I can see them in photos stemming back to when I was 8 or 9 years old. And so I would definitely have to say that some of her old, and she collected, just to put it into context, she collected dishes. It was her thing. And so I have some of those.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. I like those kinds of little treasures. Let's imagine, Aurora, that you could take an all expenses paid vacation to visit any monument anywhere on the planet. Which monument do you think you'd like to visit?
That's a difficult one, because I know those that I've seen already that I wouldn't mind seeing again. I always say that I'd want to, sort of complete my list of the 7 wonders of the world. I don't know if you would count those as monuments, but I've seen 3, so I'd like to, complete the set with the additional 4. And don't ask me to name them all.
No, but I love your sense of making the list and checking stuff off. That makes my little heart and soul happy. All right. Aurora, if you were in a talent show, what would you be performing?
Well, I'd be singing. Once upon a time, it was actually an aspiration to be a singer. But it was sort of decided for me that I should choose a safer profession. So, but I'd be singing. What I'd be singing, probably something old school, something Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. I know I'm putting myself at sort of a high expectation there, but I'd practice and maybe do it.
I think if you really wanted it, you could do it. Absolutely. I think you could. And I would come watch your talent show.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Aurora, what kind of nap do you find most satisfying?
Oh, a nap on a rainy day is what I enjoy. I think the background noise of the rain, it's just, sort of the perfect time in my mind to take a nap, even if it's in the middle of the day. And that probably would be the only time I could take a nap in the middle of the day. And so snuggled with a nice, warm quilt. And you're making me sleepy.
But I love the picture I love the picture you've got going on. And I would absolutely agree. Absolutely. Aurora, do you have a favorite sandwich?
I'd have to say a Cubano. Cubano's a nice sandwich. There's a lot of different things going on in terms of meat and cheese and different dressings and the secret ingredient garlic. Again, from my Latinx background.
Yeah, Cubano is good, especially if you get it off the taco truck and the sauces are dripping down your elbows. And yeah, excellent, good choice. What do you find scarier, snakes or spiders?
Snakes, without a doubt.
No hesitation on, wow, okay.
No hesitation. I think probably because there are more foreign to me. I mean, in New York, unless you're living further north, you typically don't run into snakes. And even then, it's not the venomous type. And, I just am not a fan, even, no disrespect. Please do not call Natalie about advocating for snakes. I think that those people who love them should continue to love them, but I'm just not a fan.
I will agree with you entirely. Just hard pass. And the final question, Aurora, what is it that you love? 1, 2, 10 things. What do you love most about the resolution industry?
I think that for me, it's a way to help people that maybe otherwise would not have access to the legal arena in terms of help. So certainly especially since the conversation is a little bit louder these days with diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, I think that that's something that the resolution space helps to filter just by being in an equitable direction. And I think the other thing is that it affords people the opportunity to resolve issues in a manner in which they would like them resolved versus having a fact finder via either a judge or jury decide the fate of the parties. The parties get to decide the fate by and large, certainly in the mediation space. They create the rules and they decide to abide by those rules. I think the other piece is really just helping people to come to a definite conclusion about a dispute. Sometimes if you are in the main judiciary system where many cases do belong, I just want to sort of create that caveat, but sometimes mediation is a better space because the emotionally charged issues can be resolved along with the legal issues. And so really filtering through that process, which is dynamic and has a psychosocial component for the parties to, again, come up with their own resolution, both internally as well as, sort of by rule binding that they create themselves. And I think lastly, it's just the trust that people put in you to be an expert in helping resolve their issue. I think that it is a privilege and it is something that in terms of the space creates an accountability toward clients that really have a large stake in your expertise in helping them come to resolution about what it is that they're disputing.
Yeah, I think all of those are so key to what our industry provides for people. Well, Aurora, it has been absolutely lovely talking with you during this idle chat. I really appreciate your time. I wish all good things for you, and hope that you'll stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me, Natalie. Thanks again to the Bar Association, and specifically to the alternate dispute resolution section.